Right, we're going to discuss a very well-known model about cultural differences in attitudes around the world. Why is that important? Well, think about this. Most companies today have customers around the world, and probably most companies have staff that are multinational or multi-ethnic. So we need to be very keen and very aware of what the cultural differences are between people. It's not really correct or proper if you sort of assume everyone's the same as you are, because you're just going to get some cultural confusion. Your customers may be unhappy, your staff may be unhappy. So it's useful to use this model. It has been around a little while, but it was a very successful model when it was launched. It's very big. Hofstede in 1973 surveyed 117,000 staff in IBM. I think that was literally all the staff in IBM. And what he came up with, or what he found at the end, was that there were 4 main differences around the world between the way that people work. And we'll go through those differences and see if you agree with them. You may agree with them. You may disagree, but it will be useful to have that knowledge. So let's have a look at his model. Now, you can see here, these are the 4 differences. And what I'll do, I'll just go around the differences, try to explain them to you, and then you can see if we can put them into practice in a minute. First one here, power difference or power distance. What do we actually mean here? Well, this is really the gap between the boss and the workers. So is there really a large gap here? So we have the boss here, and we have the staff or the workers. Is this gap really big, or maybe there's a closer relationship between them? Do they perhaps talk to each other on first name terms? Or is the boss called Sir, or maybe the boss is called Mr. or Mrs. or whatever title they're using? There may be a big gap, there may be a small gap. It really depends on which country you're in, which culture you're in. Secondly, Hofstede said he could find some quite big differences according to whether individuals were highly valued in companies or whether groups were more highly valued. So we find highly valued individualism probably in those companies. Staff are paid according to their individual contribution. But in other countries, staff are paid according to the group that they operate in. So that's another major difference. And personally, I think that is actually quite important. Number 3, do staff follow rules? Are they following the rules very closely? Is there a big procedures manual that everyone has to go through? Is there an operations manual? Or alternatively, are staff just given an objective and said, please go away and achieve the objective? Doesn't matter how you do it. It's up to you how you achieve the outcomes. And then finally, we have gender roles. Now, I am not sure this is still true because the model was quite old, 1973, that he created this. And what he was saying is that in some countries there's a big gap between men and women. And more importantly, men operate in a much different way to women. Men, in a masculine way, tend to be very competitive, maybe a little bit more aggressive. Women are more feminine and they work in a cooperative or consensus sort of way. Now, I'm not sure about this because time's moved on a little bit. What do you feel, Alex? Would you say this is still maybe true or maybe not true?
I feel like this is still true in certain countries around the world.
Yeah.
But some of them have improved.
So you think it's important that men and women are pretty much the same then?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. Depends on for what, I guess. But
you don't think a gap between men and women is a good thing?
No.
Oh, okay. That's okay. Yeah, that may be the case. Right, okay. Well, we've got lots of different opinions. So we're going to do something interesting now. We'll have a think about doing this around the world and see whether these things still occur then. Right, so we've got a variety of countries around the world, and we've got the 4 different cultural differences that Hofstede mentioned. And what we'll try to do is to work out which person or which country is in which group. This will be high or low. High differences or low differences. Number 1, power distance. Now this one, as I said, is the gap really between the boss and the workers. Are they working closely together, or is there a big, enormous hierarchy? So we've got a variety of countries. What would you say, Alex? Would you think of one of these countries has a big gap between the boss and the workers?
I feel like Vietnam is
Yeah,
a good example.
yeah, Southeast Asian countries, would you say they're more traditional
Yeah,
in that sense?
yeah, maybe that, yeah.
Okay, I think you're right, actually. I think Vietnam is probably has a, perhaps we would call it more respect for authority. We would say something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. What about where you find this sort of a quite a close working relationship between the boss and the workers?
I feel like generally European countries.
Yeah, European countries
like
probably.
Germany, Norway, or even the
Yeah,
UK.
yeah. Germany, I think Germany would be a good example. So that's a good possibility. I find the Germans, that's my experience, that they do work very closely together, and there's not a lot of difference between the boss and the workers. Right, uncertainty avoidance. Now that is basically following rules, not taking any risk. It's things like rigid formality, if you like, a very formal society. Which one perhaps follows?
Japan.
Yeah, okay. Japan's quite another traditional society that tends to be very...
Or even like China, I
Yeah,
guess.
possibly China. Possibly China. They follow rules. Right. Who likes to take risks? Who likes to be a bit more creative, perhaps? Which country is sort of more like that?
Well, I guess again, European countries.
Yeah,
So
possibly.
maybe Norway.
Or I'm pushing you somewhere else.
USA.
USA, thank you. Okay, USA, right. Well, I think we could have done Europe, but we've got USA there, so let me just take that off. Individualism. Okay, so individualism. Well, who is very collective? Which country tends to work as a group? Who's happy as working in a group? Generally, collective sort of society.
China.
Yeah, I think China. I think a lot of people would say China. And who tends to be individual? Again,
Probably America.
Yeah, I think we probably got USA. I think I should probably say that this one here would also be someone like Norway. So what you said is right, Norway.
I think we've misplaced high and low with China and USA.
Oh, yes. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. That's right. We've got it the wrong way around. Thank you very much. Okay. So, yeah, absolutely right. So, yeah, thank you for that. Right. So, a big gap between the genders. Which country would be in that situation?
I'd say either Vietnam or Japan
Yeah,
would be in that situation.
They tend to have a more traditional approach to this sort of thing. I think maybe Japan. Hofstede said that Southeast Asia tended to be like this, so that would be Vietnam, Thailand, these sorts of countries. So that would be Vietnam. And then we've got maybe a small gap between men and women. They tend to be sort of dealt with in a similar way. So what would we say here?
I guess Norway.
Yeah. I think the Nordic countries, Norway, Sweden,
They tend to work very differently. Like,
yeah.
they're more like evolved to a new era kind of thing.
They tend to be very modern in their approach. So men and women tend to be the Nordic countries are the pioneers, aren't they, of things like paternity pay and things like that. So they're very strong on equality between men and women. So yeah, I think this is good. So we do have some differences. Would you say these differences are quite strong today or quite small? Would you say if you go around the world, you would notice these differences?
I think you definitely notice some of those differences in countries like Southeast Asia. Even in America, they tend to work in different ways as well.
Yeah, I agree, yeah.
Is there any other important culture differences to be aware of?
Hofstede did go on to do some more research later on, and he said there was actually another one that you may be relevant. He said that there was in some countries an emphasis on the long term, so looking to the future, planning for the future, and in other countries there was more of an emphasis on the short term outcomes. And there was a little bit of, what can I say? There was a little bit of a moral dimension to that. Some countries are more fun-loving and some countries are more serious as well. So what would you say? Which countries are more fun-loving and which countries are more long-term in their outlook? Which ones are short-termists?
Probably the long-term one be more the traditional ones.
Yeah. Excellent.
Again, any like Japan or China.
So China and Japan are those sort of countries that they tend to be a long-term big planners. What about short-term?
I'd say the UK or USA or
Yeah, we could have the UK.
we haven't put the UK.
I mean, our culture is similar to like America, to be honest.
Yeah.
So we tend to be a little bit more perhaps fun-loving, I don't know, or short-termists. I'm not sure if we'd say that. We're a little bit less formal, perhaps, than other people. Well, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. I think we've got a good insight into this model, and that's a very interesting stuff you've come up with. Thank you very much.